What is going on, guys? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, with a Fallout 4 news update. Now, before I get to the topic, I just wanted to quickly remind all of you that I've opened a Twitch account, so if you want to watch me stream, the link to my account is in the description below. Follow me there, and eventually I'll start my first stream. I just wanted to get a few more followers onto there. So anyways, today's video is more geared towards a discussion point, and it arises because IGN did an interview with a director of Fallout New Vegas, Josh Sawyer. And in the article below, you can check it out for yourself. He says that he'd be keen to jump on board a new entry in the franchise and mulled over where he'd like it to take place. Now, those comments about where he wants the next Fallout game to be set aren't really that interesting. I think what's more interesting is what he says about Fallout becoming an MMO, similar to how the Elder Scrolls became an MMO with SO Online. Now, I want to cover his comments, and I want to make 3 points from the get-go so you guys get exactly what I'm trying to argue here. Firstly, I'm going to be answering the question, do I think that the next Fallout game, i.e. Fallout 4, is going to be an MMO? I'm going to say no. Do I think Fallout should be an MMO? No. And then the last question, do I think there will ever be a Fallout MMO game like with SO Online? And I have to say, unfortunately, I do think that Fallout eventually will become an MMO. But let's start with me covering the points of Josh Sawyer, give him the benefit of the doubt, and then I'll give my opinions, and I'd love to hear your opinions as well. So Josh Sawyer starts off by saying, personally, I think there are some interesting things that could happen with Fallout in an MMO environment. There are some folks who kind of cobble together all the Fallout 2 resources into a kind of a makeshift MMO made by fans. It was pretty cool but insane. It's like if you take all of the most brutal aspects of Ultima Online and multiply them by 5, you have that game. So I think there's interesting potential for an online version of Fallout. Okay, so let's get to the first question. Do I think that the next Fallout game, Fallout 4, is going to be an MMO? No. I think that one of the major reasons that Elder Scrolls Online was manageable in terms of being developed by ZeniMax Media Online was because they had many Elder Scrolls games that they could piggyback off of. Now, I'm talking in terms of Morrowind, I'm talking in terms of Oblivion, and also a little bit in terms of Skyrim as well. I really do think that ZeniMax Media Online would have used a lot of the assets from Elder Scrolls games that were developed by Bethesda and used them as a base in order to develop Elder Scrolls Online. Now, I couldn't find any resources that would confirm that, but I kind of just assumed that that's exactly what happened. I just thought Elder Scrolls Online probably did borrow a lot of assets from other Elder Scrolls games, because obviously Bethesda, ZeniMax, they're all under the same corporate umbrella. So I'm sure that ZeniMax Media, the parent company, would have had no issues when ZeniMax Media Online obtained the license to create an MMO for them to be able to use assets from past Elder Scrolls games in order to help them jumpstart their development for Elder Scrolls Online. Because if they were to start that game from scratch, in terms of the assets, in terms of the character models, I think the development would have been much longer. I believe it was 7 years. And even though that's a fairly long time, I still don't think Elder Scrolls Online would have been developed as fast as it was if they weren't really able to use pre-existing assets from past Elder Scrolls games. And the reason why I'm making this point is because, say the next Fallout game was going to be an MMO, what assets would they be using? Yes, you have Fallout 3, yes, you have Fallout New Vegas, but that's running on an old engine. The assets aren't really that good. I mean, those games were made years ago. If you were to go play Fallout 3 vanilla now with no mods, same goes for Fallout New Vegas, those games just do not look that good. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we have new hardware now. We have the Xbox One, we have the PS4, and of course we have the PC, but we have the two mainstay consoles that are now becoming entrenched into the market. So obviously game developers are going to have to move with the times, they're going to have to upgrade their engines, they're going to have to update the assets that they use in terms of developing their game. And the fact is that, say if ZeniMax Media Online was going to be developing a Fallout MMO, would they really be using Fallout 3 assets and New Vegas assets and just give it a nice paint coat and expect it to compete with these really great looking next gen games that are being published nowadays? I think that would just be a highly unlikely scenario. The more likely situation, in my opinion, would be for Fallout 4 to come out, for Bethesda Game Studios to completely redo the engine, for them to completely redo their assets, you know, in terms of the world, in terms of the character models, in terms of the weapons, etc. And then, once that game has been entrenched, once the game has been fully developed and published and looks really nice, then you'll have people at ZeniMax talking about, alright, now you have a great base to work off of if you want to be creating a Fallout MMO. Because I think it would be a disaster show if ZeniMax Media Online were to look towards Fallout 3 and New Vegas on old-gen hardware, mind you, games developed purely for old-gen hardware, Xbox 360 and the PS3, and then try to create a new game for current-gen hardware in the form of the Xbox One and PS4. I just don't think it'll work. I don't think it's very, very smart. I think the more efficient approach would be to wait until Bethesda Game Studios finishes developing the game that they are developing right now. We know that they're developing Fallout 4, guys. So smart money for me is for a Fallout MMO to come out well after Fallout 4 has been published, similar to what happened with Skyrim and then they released Elder Scrolls Online. However, then there's the question, do I think Fallout should be an MMO? Absolutely not. Fallout is undoubtedly a single-player RPG. It is a game where you play by yourself, where you wander the wasteland, where the decisions that you make affect the wasteland in huge ways. You will not get that same immersive and lonely and wastelandish feel that I personally got from Fallout 3 if that game was an MMO. I mean, take this for example. You understand that when you play in Fallout 3, you are the lone wanderer. The actions that you take in terms of the Purifier and the FEV virus, and also whether you have a bad karma or a good or neutral karma, all of those things in the end slate cards when you finish the game, they affect how the wasteland turns out in the end. It would just not be the same if then 30 people around you are doing the exact same quest. It'll make you feel, unlike the case with Fallout 3 and certainly not the case with New Vegas, it won't make you feel like your actions and the decisions that you're making is really affecting the wasteland in your particular way. You'll feel like you're in a world with other players playing the exact same game and that your decisions don't matter. And I think that is so far from what Fallout at the core really is. And that's certainly one of the main reasons why people are so reprehensive about Fallout becoming one of those MMO games. And going back to the lonely wastelandish feel, take this for an example. You want to blow up Megaton, and then you go over to Tenpenny Tower and you watch the explosion. Does that mean if there are 30 other people in the same MMO server that you're going to be seeing Megaton blow up again and again and again and again? Is that really going to work? Absolutely not. Fallout is meant to be a single player game. Leave it as it is. The only kind of multiplayer online aspect that I would ever accept from Fallout is if they included a cooperative campaign. Now, I don't mean multiplayer, I don't mean an MMO or anything like that. A cooperative campaign similar to Borderlands, but obviously refined to adapt to the specificities of Fallout as a game. So for example, the way I envision it would be that one player hosts the game. He is the protagonist, he is the lone wanderer, he is the courier. If a second player joins his game or her game, then they purely act as any other NPC follower would. So for example, take Jericho, right? Jericho just follows you around, he says quirky comments, but other than that, you are the main character. That's how I envision that other players who want to join my game, that's how I think that they should act. They should act as if they were any other NPC following you and nothing more. And the reason why I say that is because I still want to feel like I'm the main protagonist. I don't want to have two protagonists. I just want my friend along the way. And of course that's not going to be the ideal way you want to play the game. But just remember, this is a kind of feature that's simply going to be adding to the depth of the game and is optional. It's going to be purely optional. So if I've already finished the game like 3 times, for example, and my friend wants me to play along with him because he hasn't played yet, then I'll jump into his game and I'll help him out. Yeah, the enemies might get a bit harder, but he's still going to be having the core experience because he's the protagonist. I'm just filling the roles of a follower, of a companion. That's it. It is not going to be changing the experience for him, and if at any time he wanted to play Fallout 4 by himself the way it was intended to be, then he can do that. In that sense, that kind of cooperative aspect will not, and nor ever should it, affect his or her experience, the main host and protagonist's experience of the game as a single player RPG. That is just my opinion. That is so far and few between from an MMO, from a multiplayer game like, I don't know, Call of Duty or whatever. It's just a small additional feature that's simply going to be adding to the replayability of a game. If you're a true Fallout fan like I am, you play the game 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times through, right? Well, maybe not that much, but you get my point. Don't you think on one of those playthroughs, knowing you've already experienced the game, you've explored as much as you can, maybe you want to just play it with a friend and have that cooperative experience. Maybe you've both finished a game and just want something different. How cool would it be for you to be able to wander the wasteland with a friend? You just view him as a companion. If you already finished the game, it doesn't really affect your experience. It's just something new that you can try. But that's just my opinion. And now the final question. Do I think Fallout will ever become an MMO styled game? Unfortunately, I think it will. If Elder Scrolls Online proves to be a sustainable source of income for ZeniMax Media Online, and of course for Bethesda, who owns the IP, then I think they will strongly consider making Fallout an MMO. The only reason Elder Scrolls Online was ever made in the first place was because the Elder Scrolls IP was so immensely popular and they had a huge fan base. And that is the exact same scenario that's going on with Fallout. There are many people that love the game. There are many people that are willing just to buy whatever game that has a Fallout label on it because they're fans of the series and they want to experience more of a wasteland, right? So if Bethesda ever look back on Elder Scrolls Online and be like, wow, we made a shit ton of money from this, let's repeat it again, but this time, what are we going to do? We're going to do Fallout, because for example, Fallout 4 has done so well. Now we have all of these assets that we can use from that game. Let's build upon its popularity, its fan base, let's create an MMO and print money. That is exactly how I see things happening. But anyways guys, a long discussion video, I know, and I got a bit intense towards the end, but let me know your thoughts about Fallout 4 becoming an MMO, or any later Fallout game becoming an MMO. Anyways guys, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and keep fighting the good fight.